Okay, so now I'm going to just take you through the pretty little border for Waterside. Now, originally I did think that the border, the fairy dust border, would look fantastic around Waterside, and I almost just copied that into here. And then I remembered several people just got a little bit bored by the 12 rounds of the border, and so I figured that is always an option if you've already got that pattern. But for this one, I've just created a much smaller one. It's only a 5 round border, so something nice and easy to do. But the kind of principle of it is very similar to fairy dust in that we're going to just be doing a little design around the corners. Okay, so I have now completed this is the baby blanket. So I haven't got the row of dragonflies on here. I finished with the bridge. But what I have now done is still added this, I hope you can see there, this additional row, the sort of final row. So after you've finished your blanket, whichever charts and everything you're doing, just add an additional row of plain back loop double crochet. So you still start with your edge stitch and chain and finish with your chain and edge stitch, but in between it's just back loop double crochets, just to basically balance out the foundation row at the start of the blanket, and also just take that border slightly further away from your design, give it a little bit of breathing space. So I've done all that. And the next step in the pattern, and what I usually show on the video, is to tie off our ends. Okay, I mean, they probably wouldn't come undone anyway, but just for extra security, what I like to do is take 2 or 3 and just knot them together. Now make sure you don't pull that knot too close to the edge of your blanket, because you don't want to bunch anything up. Okay, so that's what I usually do, like so. But what I'm not for this one, I know some people actually prefer to knot them off after they've done the border, just before they join the two together, so you can do that too. And to make things quicker here, I'm going to do that. So whenever you do it, whether it's before you create the border or before you join the 2 borders, just knot them all together like so, and trim them to around about sort of 1 inch, 3 centimeters long. Okay, so you'll do that all the way down. But for now, I'm just going to leave that there and do what I know some of you like to do, and leave the ends till later. Right, so to get started, hooks. I have been using actually a 3.75mm hook for my blanket, so I'm now going to use a 3.25 for my border. Generally just try to use a slightly smaller hook for your border, because that'll just help to like firm it up and stop it going too wobbly. Okay, so to start, we are going to start with a standing double crochet. Now when I do a standing double crochet, or standing any stitch, if I'm going to be working in the round and joining up to, I don't usually start with a slip knot for this. Working in rows for the main blanket, slip knot, but when you're going to go in the round, I don't. Okay, so if you notice, I just twisted that yarn around there. Again, leave a decent length end, because you'll just need to secure that at the end. Right, so what we do, hopefully you can see at the end there, it's probably not helpful that it's in such a dark colour, but you can see this is the last stitch of the pattern. This is my edge stitch, so there's that chain. So the final chain in that final row of your blanket, just going to do double crochet in there. Okay, so that's a standing double crochet, then 1 chain and another one. So that's just in that front loop of that final chain. And then what I'm going to do, and I should have opened these first, is, which way does it open? Pop a stitch marker just in the front loop of that chain. Okay, fiddly fiddly, there we go. So now, because when you can probably see there, it's very difficult to tell which one's the chain, so now we'll know. So every corner we're going to pop a marker in that corner chain. Okay, so now what we're going to do is work our way down this edge, and to do that we're just going to, again, we're still working in the front loop, but we're working in the front loop of these chains, the edge chains that we created. Okay, there, double crochet, easier to see probably in this one, which is apple. Okay, so just under that front loop, work a double crochet. So what you should notice is that you have each stitch is worked into a different colour, apart from at the very top and bottom where we've got the extra rows. But other than that, I'll just help you see. So we've got a midnight loop, then an apple, midnight, and so on. So that's what we're going to do down this side edge. Carry on there until you get to the next corner, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm now almost down this final edge here. I've just got one more stitch, which is probably difficult to see because of the dark colour, but one more stitch to do along the side, and I've now got to that bottom edge. So what we again needed to do, similar to what we did at the top, is now pick up this, can you see this chain here? So just before that stitch, we're just going to work double crochet, chain, double crochet into the front loop of that edge chain there. Okay, and pop a marker into that front loop. Need two hands for that. There you go. So along the bottom edge here, what we're going to do, obviously you haven't got an edge chain to work into, but what we're going to do is now just pick up this front loop of this starting chain. So this is why we worked into that back bump along the bottom, because we needed these two loops at the top. It's just now going to work a row double crochets just into that front loop there. So obviously the ones at the back, you need to leave these free because that will be for the back border. That's where we're going to pick up our stitches for that. So carry along here until you get to the next corner, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I've now just got the one stitch left at the bottom edge of my blanket before I get to that edge chain. So double crochet, chain, double crochet in there, and remember to just pop that marker into that chain, front loop. Okay, oh, just the front loop. So now we are going to work our way up the next edge of the blanket. So very similar to what we did at the start of the round, except this time they'll look slightly different, just because we're working from the bottom to top in the chains rather than top to bottom. Just looks slightly different, but it's the same principle. So if you're struggling to find it, just stretch out your fabric and you'll find a chain there. So double crochet, and at the bottom here you'll find that you've got two in your MC colour before you're now switching between a contrast and the MC all the way up. Okay, so yeah, just carry on like so, just working into that front loop of those edge chains until you get to the top. Right, so I've now just got back up to the top of the blanket again, and so my final corner here. So as before, we are just gonna stretch that out. Difficult to show you the chain because of the dark colour that I used, but there we go. So as before, double crochet, chain, double crochet into there. Okay, and then we're going to pop that marker into that chain. So now what we need to do, obviously, is just very similar to what we did at the bottom. We are going to be now working a row of double crochets into this front loop here, because again we need to leave the back loops free for the back border. Right, so I've now just got the one stitch left to do on this round one of the front border. Okay, so what we're now going to do, double crochet in that front loop. So now we're going to join into a ring with a slip stitch underneath there. Okay, and what we're now going to do, you may have noticed I had this extra little marker there for ages. We're going to put that in that final slip stitch. Okay, because we're going to need to work into that on at the end of the next round. Okay, so you will probably notice I've got loads more markers here now. What these are for are to help us to position the little design on our border. So firstly, I'm going to pull that nice big loop up there so we don't lose that. And so what you need to do is now at each corner, I'll start down this edge, we're going to be placing a marker in the 8th stitch away from that corner chain. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so I'm going to get my marker and I'm going to put it in the front loop of that 8th stitch. And so to check you've got it in the right place, you now need to have 7 clear stitches between your corner marker and the markers we're placing now for the design. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and it's the same this way, but what you've got to remember here is this is the first stitch. So the marker, the stitch we just put that marker in there, that final slip stitch, counts as the first stitch after the corner. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 4, 6. There's our 8th stitch. I'm going to place a marker in that and then double check that we've got 7 stitches now between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so you'll go around, do exactly the same at each side. All right, 2, 4, 6, 8, and check that we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 stitches between. So you just carry on around like so, and then come back and we will do round 2 together. Right, so for round 2 we are now going to be joining another colour. We're not going to cut this colour off that we used for round 1 because we're going to be carrying on with that. That will be our background colour. So just leave that attached at the back of your work. Then we take our pattern colour. So the design in the pattern is designed to be using your main colour, your background colour from the blanket. But for this, as it's a baby blanket, I want something a little bit more cheerful than the midnight, so I've gone for this nice bright sunshine. Okay, so whatever colour you're using for the design in your border, we now need to make sure you leave a decent end. We're just going to pull that loop through there, pull that down. Okay, and what we can actually do to secure everything is just basically tie that together with either of these. In fact, we'll tie it together with our sort of first end there. Tie that, it's nice and secure, double knot. Okay, so now our first stitch in the corner is in our marked corner chain. Okay, so this just the extra sort of loop you can see there is that first double crochet that we slip stitched into. So this marked loop there is going to replace that. So make sure you're working into your corner chain. Okay, actually I forgot to do the chain. First of all, we start with our turning chain, then we do double crochet chain, double crochet, and if you pull that tight, you'll lose that initial loop there. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to take our corner chain, our corner marker out, and we're going to move that up to that chain we just did there. Okay, fiddly fiddly. Okay, so when we now go down the all around the blanket, we're not going to move up these markers. So when you get to each corner, you will move your corner markers up into your new chain. Now these ones are going to stay where they are because that's indicating where we're going to be working one of the trebles on the next round. Okay, so all you now need to do is go all the way around the blanket, working double crochets into the back loop. So we're back to doing regular mosaic stitches. We're working into the back loops now. Okay, so all the way around, 1 double crochet into the back loop of each stitch, and when you get to the corners, remember in there in your marked corner chain space, you're going to do double crochet chain, double crochet. Right, so I am now just about to the end of round 2. So we'll just finish that off. We've got one more stitch, one more back loop double crochet there, and now the final one is going to go into this marked slip stitch. Okay, so we'll now take that out of there. Okay, so now we finish our round by working into this stitch here. So this first loop is our turning chain, so we ignore that, and we're going to join up with a slip stitch under both loops there. Okay, and then pop that marker back in. Right, so now before we get started on row 3, I'm going to explain why. You may have noticed there's an extra marker has just appeared in this corner. What I should have said, I'll take my hook out of there. What I should have said when we did round 2 is you might find it helpful, at least until you get the hang of doing the mosaic crochet in the round, you might have actually found it helpful on here to just leave this marker in that corner chain. The reason being, we are now going to work into that, and on this first corner where we have, remember I was saying about the turning chain, but you have a little loop showing for that there too. So by leaving that marker in there, you know that this is the actual corner chain that you'll want to be working your front loop treble into on this round. So this only really applies if you are going to be starting the side with a front loop treble. Okay, so that's just to know where that is. So that's why I've just popped that in there to hopefully show you exactly which loop it is. And if you do it on all the other corners as well, I'll just help you see, but it's easier on the other corners because there's only the one stitch, the one chain across there, not the extra loop. Okay, so now to get started on round 3. So I wasn't entirely accurate when I just said we're starting with a front loop treble because we actually got to do our corner stitches first. So in this pattern, all our actual corners will be done the same. Okay, so we're gonna just pull up a loop in our background color, and then did you see I just pulled that contrast yarn down and then did my turning chain. So now because we've got our corner marked there, we can see exactly where we're going to be working our corner stitches. And for that very first one, you can just, if you want to, just work over your yarn that you're leaving on the back, because we're not cutting that off because we're going to need it again for round 4. Okay, so I'm just working over that just to sort of help sort of make things a bit more secure. One chain, double crochet. Okay, so now I'm not actually going to now, for the same reason I was talking about this, I'm actually going to now leave this marker in place because we're going to be working into that on the next round. Okay, so I'm not going to mark my corner chain just yet, because what we're now going to do, our very next stitch, is a front loop treble. Okay, and so now we know if we've marked that, that's exactly where it's going to go. Okay, so that's our first front loop treble, and what we can now do is take this marker and move it up. There we go. Try and make it nice and clear. Move it up into our corner chain there. All right, so we've now got 3 back loop double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now we've got to do this again, so one more front loop treble and 3 back loop doubles. 1, 2, 3, and then we should now, that should now take us to our marked stitch. Remember the stitch that we put in on the 8th stitch either side of our corner chain. So we're going to now do a front loop treble into there. Okay, and now I'm going to take that out and move it up. So now just got to, and always obviously make sure that whenever you've done your treble that you have missed a stitch on the back, like so. So now it's just a nice long run of back loop double crochets until you get to your next marker. So the marker that's 8 stitches before the next corner. Right, so I've now got to the next marker. So we're going to do our front loop treble into there and move that up. Okay. Then we've got 3 back loop double crochets, 3, 1 front loop treble, and we're going to do that again. So 1, 2, 3, and as you can see, we've just got 1 stitch left now before our corner chain. And so this last front loop treble is going to go into our marked corner there. So can you see what I mean about how, although I've put a marker in it, there's actually only the 1 chain going across that corner. So that's a little bit clearer than it is on that starting one. Okay. What we're going to do, front loop treble into there. I'm going to take that out because we're going to use that to mark our next corner. So this one we're going to leave in place again. Okay, so we've got double crochet, chain, double crochet, oops, pop the marker into that chain. Okay, and now we're basically back where we started. So we're going to complete this corner. Yeah, not just in one strand, get under there. There we go. Complete this corner by working our first treble of the next side into that same corner chain. Okay, so that's what you're gonna, all your corners are going to look like that. Okay, so now as we did before, 1, 2, 3 back, 1 front, 1, 2, 3 back, and front loop treble into our mark stitch, and move that marker up. Okay, so then it's just going to be, as we did before, a run of back loop double crochets until you get to the next marked stitch, and then do another corner just like that one. Okay, so I'm now up to this final marker for the pattern in the corner. So we're going to do our, just as we've done the other corners, our front loop treble in there, 3 back loop double crochets, 1 treble, 3 doubles, and we've now got to our marker in our slip stitch there. So for this one, because the round ends with another front loop treble, we're not actually going to be working into that slip stitch, we're going to be working in front of it. Oh, get out. Okay, so what we do, we didn't leave our marker in here, but we know exactly which loop we've got to work our treble into, because it has to be the same one that we started in. Okay, so you do your front loop treble in there, and to complete the round we're going to do our slip stitch again. So that goes again, ignore this, that's your turning chain. We're going to slip stitch under the top loops there of our first double crochet in the corner there. Okay, and now we can pop this back in. Okay, so that's round 3 done. Round 4, oh, and we can move that marker up. And for round 4 we switch colours back again, so we're still keeping this this one attached, our background colour attached, because we're going to need it for our final round of the border. So we're now going to pick up pattern colour again, pull that loop nice and tight, turning chain, and then double crochet, chain, double crochet into that corner chain. And what we're going to do, we can actually move this one up now because we're not going to be working, we don't need that marked for the next round. Okay, so I'm just going to move that up to there. Right, so we've now got our little pattern we're going to do. So again, by keeping that marker in there, now we know exactly where we've got to do our front loop treble here. So that's going to go into, hold on, can be a little bit tight, there we go. So our front loop treble there. So now we can get rid of that one. So we've now got one back loop double crochet there, and we're going to fill in these little 3 stitches here with front loop trebles. So we've got like a little solid block there, and then we've got back loop double crochet, front loop treble twice. Okay, so we've got like, that'll be an open square, a solid block, and an open square, and that's just the little pattern in the corners. So then we have our back loop double crochet in there. To be honest, well, we can, if you want, because you can actually see where the pattern is now, you can take these out, but to make sense of the pattern, what we're going to do is just going to leave it there for a bit longer. Okay, so we're now just going to back loop double crochet all the way along to our next marker starting our little corner design. Okay, right, I've now got to the next marker. So back loop double crochet into that marked stitch, then we've got a front loop treble, back loop double crochet twice, then 3 front loop trebles, 1, 2, 3, and then back loop double crochet in there. And now we're going to be working our final front loop treble there into this marked corner chain there. Oh. Try again. Okay, let me actually take this marker out now. Don't need that anymore. Then we get to our corner chain where we're going to do our usual double crochet, chain, double crochet, and we can move this marker up now. Fingers and thumbs. Okay, and then we know we've got to do our first front loop treble on this side into that same loop there, so that now completes our little square. Okay, then back loop double crochet there and 3 front loop trebles, 1, 2, 3, then back, front twice. So there we are again, back, front, and then a back loop double crochet into our marked stitch there, and then carry on with back loop double crochets until we get to that next marker for the corner. Okay, right, it's now just time to complete round 4. So we've got our back loop double crochet in that marked stitch, front loop treble, back, front, back, then our 3 front loop trebles. Oh, hold on, don't want to put that through there. 2, 3, back loop double crochet, and again on this round we're not actually going to be working into our marked slip stitch, we're going to work in front of it. So what I'm going to do is just take that out of there. If I can get my fingers and thumbs right, there we go. And then we complete our corner as before by working into exactly the same loop there. So we've got our last front loop treble goes into the same loop that we started there, our first treble went into, and then slip stitch in that final stitch before our marked corner chain. Okay, so we've now just got one more round to do on this front border. Put that marker back in there. So what we can do, we're now finished. We're now finished with our sunshine colour. So I'm going to chop that off, leaving about sort of 4 inches or so there, because we'll just need to tidy that up at the end. Okay, so now we go back to our background colour for the last time. And again, pull that loop through there, pull this end down, turning chain. So as we've done on every other row, we start with our double crochet chain, and you can actually go over a few more of these stitches with our loose end if you want. Just go over that there. So we've done our double crochet chain, double crochet, and we're going to move that corner marker up. So these corner markers are going to stay in position now until we've done the back border as well, because we're going to need to know where our corner chains are when we join the 2 borders together. All right, so we now start with another 2 back loop double crochets. Okay, so I've just worked over that end there. We still need to weave it in though. Okay, so then we've got 1 front loop treble, 3 back loop double crochets, 2, 3. Okay, and we're going to do that twice. So treble, 1, 2, 3 doubles. Then we've got a front loop treble into our marked stitch there. We can now get rid of this, we're not going to need it anymore. And then basically what we're now going to do is a whole long run of trebles right up until we get to that next marked stitch again. Okay, okay, so I've just got to the next corner, so I'll just take you around this complete corner here. So we have, I'm going to take that marker out because we're not going to need it anymore. So we are working a front loop treble into that marked stitch, then 1, 2, 3 back loop double crochets and 1 front loop treble, not a fruit loop, a front loop, and we'll do that again. So 1, 2, 3 back and 1 front. Okay. Then 2 back loop double crochets, and then we've got our corner stitches, so double crochet chain, double crochet in there, move that marker up, then 2 double crochets, 1 treble, 3 doubles. We're going to do that twice. So another 1, 1, 2, 3. Then we get to our marked stitch again, so I'm going to lose that marker, And now again we're going to front loop treble right the way to the next marker for that pattern. Right, so I just got the last couple of stitches to do on round 5 of border 1, so we'll just do that in there, and then the final one is going to be in that marked slip stitch. Okay, so we can now get rid of this marker, we don't need that anymore. Oh, fingers and thumbs, there we go. So to finish this, rather than doing which we have been doing, would be slip stitch into there. To make it neater, you're going to just do an invisible join, so I'll show you how we do that. So we're going to chop our yarn off, leaving that sort of 4 or 5 inches, sort of 10-15 centimeters, something like that, just long enough to thread onto our needle, do the invisible join, and obviously tidy up the end as well. So what we're going to do, thread that onto our tapestry needle. And so rather than working as we would have done if we were doing a slip stitch into there, what we're actually going to do is insert our needle there, because what we're doing, we're actually going to replace these loops with like a new top loop, and that's what's going to make it kind of disappear. Okay, so we're right next to, we're in that chain space right next to our marked corner chain. Okay, and don't pull it too tight, because the idea is we want to leave these loops the same sort of size as all the others. Okay, so just got that there, and then I'm going to push our needle back through where it came out, where the yarn came out, down, and that'll also go through this extra loop on the back. Okay, and again just pull it so it looks just the same. There we go, that's it, look, just the same as all the other loops, and that is why it's an invisible join. So now all we need to do is tidy up our ends on the back. So as this is all going to disappear inside a border, we don't probably need to weave in exactly. You can just take that down there, and again don't pull anything too tight because you don't want to bunch anything up. Okay, we'll do that there. And what I'll then do with this one, I mean, you can weave it backwards and forwards if you want. Oh, hold on, get all bits in there, trim that up. Right, try again. So I'm now going to come backwards along here to get close to my stitch there. Okay, and if we just tie those two together like we did down here, again don't pull it too tight because you don't want to bunch anything up. 2, we can even do an extra one, that's 3 knots, do an extra knot down here as well, and then trim them to, I don't know, about 1 inch long. You don't want to trim them too short because then they may unravel. Okay, but that's all going to be hidden, that'll be hidden inside our border when we do it. Okay, so that is border 1 done. Right, so now we have completed our front border. There we go. It's time to make another border on the back, and we'll then join the two together and we'll sandwich all these ends in between. Okay, so to do that, it's basically the same as we did on the front, except this time I'm just going to do plain rounds. I'm not going to bother with this little pattern. You absolutely could do exactly the same on the back if you wanted to. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and you can use any colours you want from what you've got left over in your sort of yarn from the other blanket. For this baby blanket, I think you'll need something like about 8 grams of Stylecraft Special DK for each round, so just have a little look to see if you've got enough there. Okay, so just going to start just like we did on the front one with a standing double crochet, and again I didn't put a knot on there, I've just twisted it around because we're going to be joining at the end, we can make it secure then. Okay, so what you now need to do is have a look on the back, and you'll see where you can see there in the corner where all our corner stitches were made on the front. So what we now need to do is work into the chain on this side, exactly the same chain, and do the same thing. So double crochet, chain, double, oh, hold on, get all of the yarn there, double crochet. Okay, so we're going to put a marker in that corner chain just as we did on the front. All right, and then just as we did on the front, oh hold on, I got caught up there, there we go, and then just as we did at the front, we're going to go down the edge here picking up a stitch in each stitch. Okay, so we've done the top, so we've now got another one. So it might be a little bit more tricky to see the chains here because we've obviously already worked into them on the front. If you have a little stretch, you should be able to see. Can you see there? There's this sort of horizontal line there, so that's what we're going to work into. So we're going to do a row of double crochets down the edge like so. Okay, a little bit easier to see when it's a lighter colour. Okay, like so. So just trying to stretch it so you can see better. There we go. So there are our chains. So just work all the way down the edge like that. So we're doing, like I say, exactly the same as you did on the front. Okay, so I've now just got down to the first corner, and I thought we'll just run through that together one more time. So again, you can probably see the stitch where all of the old corner stitches were made on the front. So that is where you can see, we're just going to work into that chain. Okay, double crochet, chain, double crochet. All right, so we're going to pop our marker in there. And now we're just going to carry on. We've got the one loop left along this bottom edge, so we're going to work a row of double crochets into that final front loop there. So yeah, now you should be fine to carry on all the way around, and I'll see you when you get back to the beginning again. Right, so I've almost finished round 1 of border 2. We've just got one more back loop double crochet to do there, and then just as we did on border 1, I'm going to just join with a slip stitch there. Oh, and just pop a marker in that slip stitch. So now you've got a choice really. If you want to change colours, maybe have a different colour for each round or do some stripes or something, then you can just pull up the new colour in there before we do our turning chain, just like we did on the front. I think I am actually just going to do a total of 5 rounds of exactly the same colour, just to give a nice plain bright border on the back. So if you're not changing colour, you can just literally now go straight into your turning chain, and then working into your marked corner chain there is double crochet, chain, double crochet. So that's what you're going to do in every corner chain, and we're just going to move that up so we don't lose track of where our corner chains are. Okay, so then it's just nice and simple. In between the corners, it's just a case of back loop double crochets. So I'm now going to do that all the way around, and I will just see you one more time when we get to the end of this round. Right, so I've just come back here at the end of round 2 of border 2, just to show you how important this marker is in the slip stitch when you're just dealing with one colour. See, it's much harder to see where the last stitch of the previous round was when you're only doing one colour, so that is very, very important there. So I've just got one more stitch there, and then the final stitch of the round goes into that marked slip stitch. So now we can take that marker out, and we know where we've got a slip stitch to join this one, because it will be in the loops just before our marked corner chain. Okay, so whoops, slip stitch in there, and make sure we put that marker back in. Right, so that is all you need to know for the back border. Just now I need to do 3 more rounds, so we've got the same number of rounds on the back and the front. So as usual, we'll start with our turning chain, and then double crochet, chain, double crochet in that marked corner chain. Pop that marker back up there and carry on around as we have been with lots of back loop double crochets. And of course the double crochet chain, double crochet in the corners. Right, so I've now almost finished round 5 of border 2. Just got this final stitch to do in that marked slip stitch. So we can now get rid of that. So what we're going to do now, like we did for border 1, we're just going to now finish off with a nice neat invisible join. So just quickly whip through that again. So pulling that yarn through there. And then as before, remember we don't now work under those 2 loops, which we would if we were doing a slip stitch. We are going to insert our needle under those 2 loops. Okay, don't pull it too tight, then insert, so back into the middle of that stitch and through that extra loop on the back, just taking care to make sure that those loops are the same as the others, and then we just tidy it up on the back. So what I'll do, as we need to do the beginning as well, we'll just come down a little bit like so, meet the other one halfway. Okay, so we've just got to tidy up this other end as well. So it's all about making it nice and secure so that when it's in use and washed and things, nothing comes unraveled. Okay, so pull that up to there and just make sure you don't pull anything too tight because we don't want to bunch anything up. Okay, do a 3rd knot for good measure. All right, and now that can be trimmed like so. Okay, so we've now completed both of our borders. So what we now need to do, so if you did it beforehand, great, you can go straight to the join, but other than that, we just now need to tie all our other ends together like I showed you there. So it's just a case of going around your blanket. I mean, this is probably not totally essential. With something like this acrylic style craft special, the knots are pretty secure, so you could probably just don't trim them too close. I trim them to about 1 inch, you'd probably get away with it. But I just like to tie them together. I usually do 3s because it's a bit quicker than in pairs. Just tie them together just to make extra certain that nothing's going to come undone, because obviously once it's in the middle of your border, you're not going to be able to get to it if it comes unraveled. All right, so carry on around your blanket. Make sure you've got all of your ends tied together and trimmed, and then come back and we will join it all together. Great, so once you've got all of your ends secured, we now just need to join these 2 borders together, tucking in these ends as we go. Oh, look nice and neat like that. Okay, so I am now going to get my background colour, and as before we are starting with a standing double crochet in the corner, but what you've got to remember to do is now pick up the stitches from both corners. So this is why we left our corner stitch markers in, because we need to start in a corner so we know where we are. Okay, so you've got back loop of the front border corner chain, and like the back loop, so it'll be the front as you see it, the back loop as it was when we made it of the back one. Okay, I'm just gonna now pull that through there, so standing double crochet, and then we're going to do 2 more. So the corners will all have 3 double crochets in them. Okay, and there's no need now to mark that middle one because this is our final round, so we're just going to take these markers out. So it's just a nice and easy case of working your way around. So on these side edges you just need to just tuck them in. If you had done the fairy dust border, which is a lot wider, then you wouldn't need to tuck them in because they would just sort of disappear anyway because the border would be wider. Okay, Don't be tempted to cut these too short, because you do risk it all coming unraveled then if there's not much left. Okay, so now all we're going to do, back loop of the front border, back loop as it was worked, so the front loop as you see it there of the back border, double crochet. So just work all your way around the blanket like so. Okay, front, back. So down the back you'll just see the stitches will look slightly different. So carry on like that, and say when you get to the next corner, remember that in those marked corner chains you need to do 3 double crochets just to get you around the corner. Right, so I've now got all the way around my joining round, done like so. So we just got to do one final invisible join. So this time obviously we're just going to have to be a little bit more careful about how neat the back is, because you're going to see the back this time. Okay, so what we do, we can pull that in nice and tight, because what we're going to do, we're now obviously replacing this sort of loop there, so we're going to insert our needle there. Okay, and as always, don't pull it too tight, because you just want your loops to look the same as the others. Okay, so there's like that. So that's done nicely. So as I said, we now just need to make sure, type that down, we keep the back as neat as possible. So just gonna weave that under here. Okay, and again, make sure you don't pull it too tight, don't bunch anything up. Then I'm going to wrap around there, do a few more stitches, and then just come back again like so. And what we can do to make sure we lose this end completely is just now go back down there and then push it through. Make sure you don't go all the way through the double border, but stick it out any way you like so. So it's not weaving it, it's literally just going between the 2 borders. Pull out there, and then when you cut this off, just pull it slightly tighter. There we go, and it's disappeared. So you just need to do exactly the same with that end, and you're done.